Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Welcome to Double Portion Inheritance Ministries. I'm Maria Merola Wold.
And I'm Gary Wold.
In accordance with 1 Corinthians 9, 7 through 14, after the Sabbath is over, we ask you to prayerfully consider a one-time or recurring donation to www.paypal.com/PayPalMe/DPI Ministries or www.venmo.com@Maria-Merola. You can also use the email address doubleportioninheritance@gmail.com. Is there a precedent for a 13th month of Adar in Scripture? Ever since the Hallel 2 Jewish calendar has been fixed, leap months have been added according to the Metonic cycle of 19 years, of which 12 are common non-leap years of 12 months, and 7 are leap years of 13 months. This 19-year cycle is known in Hebrew as the Machzor Katan.
Machzor means cycle.
Right, so it's a small cycle, yeah. Katan means small. So it's interesting that there are 7 leap years within a Metonic cycle, since 7 is the number that represents covenant. There are also 7 assemblies in the first 3 chapters of the book of Revelation. Conversely, there are 12 non-leap years of 12 months for the 12 tribes, and 12 times 12 is 144. Now, even though Scripture does not specifically mention a 13th month of Adar, we do know that the tribe of Ephraim is the 13th tribe who was added to the house of Israel in Genesis 48:19. Jacob prophesied over his youngest grandson, calling him a multitude of nations, or in Hebrew, Melo HaGoyim. And because that's what that means. Melo HaGoyim means a multitude of nations. And Paul used the same phrase, but he called it fullness of the Gentiles. But it translates to the same thing in Hebrew. That's in Romans 11:25. So the apostle Shaul, Paul, was the 13th apostle. He was sent to preach to these lost sheep of Israel and the nations. Additionally, Paul wrote 13 epistles to these 13 tribes. And I have another blog here called The 13th Apostle Sent to the 13th Tribe. Okay, so I'm going to show you this illustration here, that there are actually 13 constellations. Now, the heathens renamed these, but originally they were named after the 12 tribes, which I'll show you another illustration of that, right? But we've got, Aries the ram, which is what Josephus said. It's in this month that we keep Pesach, right? Every so often, we have a 13th month in the year, and that's the 13th constellation right here. It's called Ophiuchus. Okay, so we're going to talk about Ophiuchus. Scripture teaches us that Elohim arranged the stars into recognizable groups that we call constellations. The Bible mentions 3 of these as Orion, the bear, which is called Ursa Major, and the crooked serpent, most likely is called Draco in modern astronomy. But these constellations are mentioned in Job 9:9, Job 26:13, Job 38:31 through 32, and Amos 5:8. The same passage also references the star group called Pleiades, aka the 7 stars. Now, our Messiah told us in Revelation 1:20 that the 7 angels of the 7 assemblies are the 7 stars. He says, I will tell you the meaning of the 7 stars which you saw in my right hand. He said, and the 7 stars are the 7 angels that preside over the 7 assemblies. Okay, so Pleiades represents the 7 stars that preside over the 7 assemblies in the nations. Elohim is the one who fastens the bands of these constellations. He is the one who brings them forth each in its season. In Job 38:32, Elohim also points us to the Mazorot, which is translated as constellations or zodiac. So in a normal solar year of 12 months, each of these is named after the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay, now there it is. You see that Judah is symbolized by the lion. Remember, our Messiah is called the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Virgo In Hebrew, she's called Betula. That is called the tribe of Naphtali. And then Libra is what is named after the tribe of Asher. Scorpio, the tribe of Dan. Sagittarius, Gad. Capricorn, Simeon. Aquarius is Reuben. Pisces is Levi. Aries is the ram. Okay. Joseph is Taurus. Benjamin is Gemini. And then Cancer is Issachar. So, yeah, all of these were originally named after the 12 tribes, but there's a 13th tribe named Ephraim. Okay. And a lot of people don't realize this, but the 13th constellation is called the serpent bearer. Okay. Or in Greek, Ophiuchus. It is a large constellation straddling the celestial equator, and it is commonly represented as a man grasping a snake. Now here it is, Ophiuchus, the serpent bearer. You'll notice he's got one foot on the scorpion, okay? And he's, destroying the serpent. He's got the serpent in his hand, but remember, our Messiah is the one who was prophesied that he was going to crush the head of the serpent. So stay with me on this. You'll understand a little bit better. In Job 26:12, it says, he divides the sea with his power, and by his understanding he smites through the proud. In the next verse 13, by his spirit he has garnished the heavens. His hand has formed the crooked serpent. Okay, so looking at this word crooked in Hebrew, it shows us a prophetic picture of the fleeing serpent, the serpent that's been that is going to be destroyed. It says he is being defeated by the Messiah. So the man holding the serpent represents our Messiah. Yahushua has given us the power to chase the serpent away. So the word crooked is this Hebrew word, number 1281, beriach. Beriach means a fugitive, a fleeing serpent. The constellation by that name, crooked, noble, piercing. But it comes from this other word, barach, okay, to bolt, to flee suddenly, to chase away, to drive away, to put to flight. And it says to run away, to shoot. So the crooked serpent is mentioned again by the prophet Isaiah, and he calls him Leviathan. And that crooked serpent, he calls him Leviathan, that crooked serpent. The prophecy goes on to say that Yahuwah will punish this crooked serpent, and he shall slay the dragon that is in the sea. Now you read in Revelation 13:1 that the beast rises up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. This is obviously referencing the same serpent from the Garden of Eden who beguiled Eve into eating of the forbidden fruit. But you see, in the garden, it was just a little serpent. Now this serpent is all grown up into this huge dragon who has exerted his influence over the entire world. Okay? His influence is no longer just over 2 people in the garden. Revelation 12:9 says he deceives the entire world. Okay, in Isaiah 27:1, it says, in that day, Yahuwah with his sore and great and strong sword shall punish Leviathan, the piercing serpent, even Leviathan, that crooked serpent. And he shall slay the dragon that is in the sea. Okay, so the Hebrew Concordance defines Leviathan. It's a serpent, especially a crocodile or some large sea monster. The constellation of the dragon, also a symbol of Babylon. So let's see what it says in Revelation 12:9. It says, and the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceives the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his malachim, his angels, were cast out with him. And then in verse 20, verse 1, it says, and I saw a messenger, a malach, come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. In verse 2, It says, and he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. So here's a hint. Who has the keys to death and Sheol? Who has the keys? In Revelation 1:18, it says, I am he that lives and was dead, and behold, I am alive forevermore. Amen. And have the keys of hell and of death. So our Messiah is, I believe, the one who has the key to the bottomless pit. You have to understand, the word angel, when we see the word angel, what we always conjure up in our mind is some winged creature. But the word angel in Hebrew is malak, and that word can mean a messenger, a king, a prophet, an ambassador, a priest. So it's not limited to this winged creature, okay? It's a messenger. So the one having the key to the bottomless pit could very well be our Messiah, okay? So I believe it is him, that Yahushua is the one who will cast the devil into the bottomless pit. So this constellation of Ophiuchus shows a man laying hold on the dragon. And what does it say here? It says in Leviticus 26:8, and 5 of you shall chase 100, and 100 of you shall put 10,000 to flight. It's talking about, your enemy. In our case, it's demonic entities. In Deuteronomy 32:30, how should one chase 1,000 and 2 put 10,000 to flight, except their rock had sold them and Yahuwah had shut them up? In Matthew 4:10, then said Yahushua, get you hence, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship Yahweh your Elohim, and him only shall you serve. So Yahushua was casting him away. So what the serpent bearer represents is our Messiah, who was prophesied to crush the head of the serpent in Genesis 3:15. Our Messiah is also represented as the bronze serpent on the pole, according to John 3:14. John even says, and I'll show it to you, John, because there's some people that don't understand why our Messiah would be represented by a bronze serpent on a pole. Okay, John the Apostle said, and as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up. Okay, so in 2 Corinthians 5:21, we are told that Yahushua was made to be sin for us who knew no sin. In other words, even though he wasn't a sinner, his body became a host for the sins of the world. All the sins of the world were placed on his body, and his body was completely destroyed. Thus, the power of sin was destroyed. Okay? His spirit, his soul was not destroyed. His spirit, his soul was not corrupted. It was only his mortal body that was destroyed. Okay? His body became sin. Okay, so you'll notice that Ophiuchus is treading on a scorpion. Okay, this should remind us of the promise that our Messiah gave us in Luke 10:19. Behold, I give unto you power to tread on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. In Mark 16:18, it says, they shall take up serpents, and if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover. In Romans 11:13, Shaul, or Paul, calls himself the apostle of the Gentiles, which are the lost sheep of Israel and the nations. In Acts 28, Shaul was sent to preach to the 13th tribe in the nations. Okay? In Acts 28:3-6, Paul was on the island of, it says Melita, but nowadays we would call it Malta, the island of Malta. And guess what? He was bitten by a serpent on the hand. See, Paul was the 13th tribe. the 13th apostle, who was sent to write 13 epistles to the 13th tribe of Ephraim. And when he placed a bundle of firewood on the fire, out came a serpent, which fastened itself on his hand. But as we continue to read the account, Paul came away unscathed by the snake's bite, and it was a miraculous sign that led souls to believing in Yahushua as their Messiah. Therefore, we can see that Paul was the 13th apostle who wrote 13 epistles to the 13 tribes. There are also 13 constellations. Therefore, we must conclude that there is a precedent for a 13th month of Adar. Okay, stay with me. There's more. During the Great Tribulation, we are going back to a 360-day calendar. Just like in the days of Noah, every month will be evenly 30 days long, Once the two witnesses, or in other words, the two olive trees and the two candlesticks, come back together and are made one stick, one new man, Ephraim will be joined to Judah, and we will no longer need a 13th month for the 13th tribe of Ephraim. Okay, the two witnesses have a ministry of 42 months or 1,260 days. That's how long the Great Tribulation is. There is no such thing as a 7-year tribulation. People, get that out of your head. Everybody's confused because theologians have been telling us for millennia now that Daniel chapter 9, they believe that Daniel chapter 9 is talking about an antichrist who confirms a covenant. That's not what this is about. When it says, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, that's talking about the real Messiah, Yahushua. He's the one that confirmed the Abrahamic covenant for 1 week. It was in the middle of Passover week. It says, in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. Now, they continued performing animal sacrifices for 40 more years after his crucifixion. But from that day moving forward, whenever the high priest performed the Yom Kippur sacrifice, the Father in heaven did not recognize it because they rejected him as the red heifer. You see, Messiah was portraying the role of the red heifer that sanctifies the altar. Okay? So there's no such thing as a 364-day calendar in Scripture. There are 360 degrees to a perfect circle in geometry. Therefore, it stands to reason that we are going back to a 360-day year once the Great Tribulation arrives. Okay, now I would like to summarize by sharing a graphic I made, okay, for a clear pattern of a 13th month, okay? Jacob added 2 of his grandsons to the original 12 tribes. Thus, there are 14 named tribes altogether. Ephraim being the 13th, he was Joseph's youngest son, and then Manasseh, Joseph's oldest son, was the 14th. But Joseph is the one that holds the stick of Ephraim, okay? Because we're told right here in Ezekiel 37:16, moreover, you son of man, take you one stick and write upon it for Judah, and for the children of Israel, his companions. Then take another stick and write upon it for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and for all the house of Israel, his companions. And then in verse 19, it says, say unto them, thus says Yahuwah Elohim, behold, I will take the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim. So you see, Joseph and Ephraim are together. They count as the same tribe, okay? That's why in Revelation 7, we don't see Ephraim named, because he and Joseph are the same tribe. They're one and the same. Okay, we don't see Dan mentioned either, but I'm not going to get into that this time because it's too lengthy. I don't have time. I'm trying to get through this. So I've got this other blog called What is the Double Portion Inheritance, which I go into a lot more detail about the 2 sticks of Ezekiel. Now, this is a graphic I made this week. I posted it on Facebook, and I will show you what it says. Ephraim is the 13th tribe. In other words, a multitude of nations. We read that in Genesis 48:19 and Romans 11:25. Ezekiel's 390 days, okay, he was told to lay on his left side for Israel, which Israel is Ephraim. Right after the two kingdoms split, when King Solomon died, they became two separate kingdoms. There's the kingdom of Israel, which is also called Ephraim. And if you take 390 and you divide that by 30 day lunar cycles, you end up with 13 months. So when Ezekiel was told to lay on his side, left side, for 390 days, that was 13 months. That's in Ezekiel 4:5. So why was he told to lay on his side for 13 months? Because Israel is the 13th tribe. Ephraim is the 13th tribe. That's in Ezekiel 4:5. Paul is also the 13th apostle who wrote 13 epistles to the 13th tribe of Ephraim. In other words, Gentiles, nations. Romans 11:13, he says, I am the apostle of the Gentiles. And now we know there's a 13th constellation called Ophiuchus who pierces the crooked serpent. So the man who is holding the crooked serpent represents our Messiah, who was prophesied to crush the serpent. All right, inside the Metonic cycle, which is 19 years, inside those 19 years, there are 12 non-leap years. Okay, in other words, 12 years of 12 months for the 12 tribes of Israel. And there are 7 leap years for the 7 assemblies in the nations. Okay, Ephraim, the 13th tribe, gets a 13th month. So you have, within a 19-year cycle, we have 12 non-leap years. 12 times 12 is 144. And then we have 7 leap years. 7 is the number of covenant. 7 assemblies in the book of Revelation. And these are the ones in the nations which represent Ephraim, the 13th tribe. So you see that? The 13th tribe gets a 13th month. So there is a precedent for 13 months in the scriptures, contrary to what many people have been taught to believe. And we see the 13th constellation, Ophiuchus, as a witness to that.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Yahuwah bless you and keep you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yahuwah lift up his countenance upon you and give you Shalom. We hope you've enjoyed today's broadcast and that you are encouraged in your walk with Messiah. For more teachings, subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell to be notified of our latest content. Visit Maria's many blogs at doubleportioninheritance.com. That's doubleportioninheritance.com. This ministry is made possible by the prayers and support of listeners like you. To make a donation by PayPal or Venmo.com, use the email address doubleportioninheritance@gmail.com. That's doubleportioninheritance@gmail.com. On behalf of Maria and Gary at Double Portion Inheritance Ministries, may Yahuwah bless you.